for me, I was morbidly obese. Obesity is such an epidemic that people aren't going to immediately think, oh, well, you're just undernourished. But like,
right. And you almost think I need to just eat less.
There were multiple times where I was like, okay, I'm going to change something. Something has to shift. Like I needed so much, and I know in hindsight to be in control, that's what I wanted so badly. And so I would start over, right? I would do the Whole30 or I would do the, you name it. Like I was just willing to try anything.
Right before you started kind of this transformation journey, how long was that? Was it 5 years? Was it 10 years? Like what are we talking in terms of timing?
It was a solid 12 years of my life. Yeah.
And how do you do that sustainably and practically as somebody who's running a business and parenting and busy in life? Because I think it can sound overwhelming to make a significant shift to the way that you're eating and living and your diet habits and all of those things.
You're listening to She with me, Jordan Lee Dooley, a faith-based wellness podcast to support you in your motherhood journey and inspire you to be good to your body. Come invited, leave ignited.
Hey Mal, welcome to She.
Hello, happy to be here.
I am so excited to unpack this journey you've been on. And really, I feel so inspired and encouraged by it in so many ways. I know I've sent you voice messages over the last year. Like, this is so fun to watch. I'm sure it hasn't been quite as fun to go through in your own ways, but also probably very rewarding. But before we jump into all the things, because I feel like this is a very, very, very important topic to talk about as women. I know I've gone on weight loss health journeys that have gone so extreme on restriction and all of the classic diet culture stuff in the past, years and years ago, that really messed up my health. And I think a lot of women just feel kind of paralyzed when it comes to if they want to go on a weight loss journey or they want to address a weight issue, just feeling how do I even do that in a way that's still going to support my overall health, right? Because it's easy to just get into a crazy calorie deficit and over-exercise like crazy and do all the things that might make you lean, but not really create a sustainable way of living. And so I feel like you've just done this so beautifully. But before we get into the details, can you just give us take us back in time a little bit. Give us a little background on your health journey, really. What led to where you're at now? Walk us through some of the history that kind of led you to a point of realizing something needs to change.
Okay. So I'll spare you the deep, deep dive, but I do want to give you kind of a big picture of just so that you kind of have an idea of where I've been and what got me to where I'm at. So I just turned 35 last week. So that's kind of where I'm at in life. And I got married when I was 22. So that feels like a really big deal.
I got married at 22 as well. Yeah.
And there was kind of a perfect storm of events. I had just graduated college. I was running my own business. Life was just very stressful, and getting married is wonderful. But when you're 22 and you're getting married, that's also very stressful.
Yeah. And so you're basically a child still at that point of your
Yes. Sam and I were just talking last night. We literally grew up together. It's just wild. When you get married that young, which is wonderful, but I feel like it does pose a lot of just things that you've never navigated before. And about a year into our marriage, my hormones, which I didn't realize at the time that it was my hormones, but my hormones just went haywire. I ended up having a ton of panic attacks, anxiety issues, and I was not familiar. And at the time, we didn't have social media like we do now. And so I just didn't know of anybody else going through that. I ended up in the emergency room multiple times because I thought I was dying because my anxiety was so bad. And it got very bad to the point. And I don't know if you and I have ever even talked about this, but to the point where I asked Sam to drive me to the Pavilion in Amarillo, which is essentially where, you check yourself in for mental health issues. I was so concerned about where I was mentally that I felt like something very drastic needed to be done. And so that's really where it started for me. And I went to the Pavilion. Sam took me reluctantly, and they evaluated me and said, hey, we're going to send you to a primary care physician down the road. I think that this is just really severe anxiety that you need to get treated. And so, being 22, I went down the road, right, and was prescribed within an hour of talking to this doctor 2 antidepressants and an extremely addictive anxiety medication. And so at the time, when you're in that hole and I'm not against medication. I should say that right off the bat, but there was no blood work done.
Yeah.
I was not familiar with just the medical industry in general. And I was desperate for help.
Right.
And so
Solutions. Yeah.
yeah, so we left the doctor's office. I started taking that medication. Long story short, got very addicted to that anxiety medication, and it created a host of other issues. And so from there, I feel like what could have probably been prevented, because my hormones were just out of whack, just a host of other issues were created, and my health really started to spiral. I started to gain weight. But that was really just the tip of the iceberg. I just didn't feel good. I would say to Sam all the time, my husband, babe, I just don't feel like myself. I don't feel right. And that was kind of like the trend really for the next several years. In between that, we had multiple miscarriages, as you know, and we've shared, that journey together. And so grief, mixed with poor health and really, messed up hormones created for me a cycle of just not taking care of myself, undervaluing myself, not really. I had a lot of fatigue from going to doctors because I saw so many.
Yeah. That's a real thing. Like when you are in a health journey or trying to figure out what is going on because something is clearly off, right?
Yes.
And you're not really getting a lot of answers, or you're getting some answers, or you're finding some positive steps, but not really seeing significant change or significant progress. There truly is like an emotional and mental just fatigue that comes with that can almost make you be like, whatever, like this is just going to be how it is. And I'm curious if you ever got to that point. Like, did you ever feel like,
100%.
I guess this is just my life now?
Yes, I did. And I went to so many doctors, and after our first miscarriage, obviously that for me was like, whoa, like something is off, and I need someone to tell me something other than I have anxiety because there's obviously something.
This obviously is a whole different issue. Yeah.
100%. And so, yes, I went to pretty much every doctor, I feel like, under the sun. I mean, the amount of money that we spent, time that we spent, resources, just mental energy, going to a doctor and re-explaining what's going on so many times. And then there's new prescriptions added and things like that. And yes, I absolutely hit a point where I was like, you know what? I'm just done. I don't feel like.
I remember we were having conversations at one point where you were like, whatever. Yeah.
I just felt like, and I'm still, honestly, if I'm being totally honest, healing from some of my experiences with doctors over the years. And I really am a believer in Western medication. I think it's honestly miraculous. I think God uses it in a million different ways, and I'm grateful for it. But I also think that we just lack, really, that for me, I lacked the education on how to advocate for myself and how to ask the right questions that, would get me somewhere instead of just another doctor saying, here's another prescription.
And to actually heal versus just treating the symptom. Yeah.
100%. And so, yes, I did get to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm done for a season. I'm checking out, and I'm going to take a minute because it was exhausting, honestly. But yes, that's kind of the bird's eye view story of, hey, we went through a lot. I was diagnosed with endometriosis, I think in 2021, after 3 miscarriages and years of infertility, had multiple surgeries. So I just feel like it's kind of been one thing after the other. And that's kind of where I ended up maybe 100 pounds, 120 pounds overweight, exhausted, and to be totally honest, extremely depressed. So that's
Yeah. Okay. So this went on if you just give us a quick overview of timeline. So at 22 is when you got married. And then within that first year or so is when the mental health stuff started, the prescription started, the lack of like, where is this even coming from? What imbalances might be contributing to this, this mental health stuff. From that point to right before you started kind of this transformation journey, how long was that? Was it 5 years? Was it 10 years? Like what are we talking in terms of timing?
It was a solid 12 years of my life. And it's hard to, in a matter of an hour, I obviously am leaving details out. We had good things happen in between that time. We had a healthy son who is a miracle. And I'm so beyond grateful for that. So it's not like I was just stuck in this terrible, pit for 12 years, but it was a consistent 12 years. And if I'm being honest, still is. I mean, I'm not just because I have experienced significant healing in the last year and a half, it doesn't mean that,
It's all
life
better
is
now.
perfect
Everything's
and
great.
things are
Right.
solved. Right.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
Okay.
been a
So
long
what
time.
was the turning point for you? Like, what was the catalyst after this 12-year kind of journey with, of course, a lot of ups and downs and positives and negatives, but overall it was a significant, based on what you said, it kind of sounds like just a steady kind of decline of your overall health in spite of seeking help, in spite of seeking doctors. And honestly, you even knew a lot about like,
Yeah.
you did a lot of self-education and knew enough about over time as you went through this 12-year journey. You began to learn about more holistic approaches and made changes to your lifestyle and still were hitting a wall. So what was the thing for you that was like, something has to give? It's time to really kick this up a notch. Walk me through that process and that part of the journey.
Yeah. I love this question because I feel like it's important first to say that there were multiple times where I was like, okay, I'm going to change something. Something has to shift. Like I needed so much, and I know in hindsight to be in control, that's what I wanted so badly. And so I would start over, right? I would do the Whole30 or I would do you name it. Like I was just willing to try anything. And then I would putter out because life would dish out something really stressful and I wouldn't be able to maintain it. It was not sustainable for whatever reason. And my son is now almost 8. And last year, in March, we took him to Disney World for the first time. And it was my first time to go to Disney World too. So I felt like I was a kid, right? Like, exploring that for the first time. And I remember, and I'll never forget, getting to Disney World. We were with like extended family. My nephews were there. It was this really beautiful time. And I couldn't keep up. I was exhausted. And when I say exhausted, like by the end of the day, I felt like I needed 5 days to recover from that day because.
And Disney is exhausting to walk around, but I
would be exhausted now, but 100 pounds overweight, so many just blood sugar issues and just feeling like I couldn't keep up. I mean, my body was just absolutely exhausted. And the way that I was, nourishing myself or not nourishing myself at that point in my life played a massive role in that. But I remember being in the middle of Disney World and watching my son explore. And I remember asking myself the question, how would this be different if I were healthier? How would not just this be different for me, but how would this be different for him? What would he experience in a different way if his mom was in a better, healthier spot? And for me, for so long, Jordan, I've walked this closely with you. You've walked this closely with me. So, desperate and frustrated with not being able to grow my family in the way that I had envisioned, that I was so hyper fixated on that and focused on that I forgot. Not that I forgot the son that God had given me, but by any stretch of the imagination, but I really did forget kind of how to live in the moment, with him and be the mom that God had called me to be with him now. And to show up for the people. For so long, I was trying to get pregnant. Right. And that was my focus. I felt so much pressure and stress from that. I felt like that was, if it was going to happen, it was going to be because of something I did. And so I needed to put all of my energy into this one thing.
And it really can take all of your energy and all of your focus. And
100%.
You don't intend to overlook and not pay attention to the blessings that are around you or not fulfill those, but it truly can consume you so quickly. Yeah.
And nobody really, I feel like we're starting to talk more about this, but the pressure of the biological clock, right? That you feel as a woman of oh my goodness. And for me, it was I had this amazing son who I desperately wanted to give a sibling. And I couldn't, no matter what I did, everything I did, just couldn't do it. And for whatever reason, the answer was no over and over and over again. And so I got into this headspace of well, I'm not worthy, because I've done everything that I can, that I know to do. I've gone to all the doctors. I've tried the treatments I'm comfortable with, and this isn't working. And so I must just not be worthy of motherhood again. I must have really screwed this first time up. And so God's just saying no. That was my unhealthy thought
Yeah.
pattern,
Do you feel
right?
like
And
that
so
also like kind of damaged the way you viewed, like, I know for me going through our journey, which wasn't even nearly as long as what you've walked, but like I remember in those years feeling like my body is failing me and my body is failing my family. And it's really
right,
hard to be good to your body when you're
yes,
struggling to believe that your body is a good thing and a worthy like
yes.
investment to make, you know, from the very beginning. Like I know that I struggled with this sense of like my body's failing to do really the thing it should be biologically designed to do. So what good is it? You know?
Yeah, and I think for very like driven people like you and I,
Mm,
like we are very goal oriented. And so
mhm,
as messed up as it sounds, for me it was like, okay, pregnancy is the goal. This is
yeah,
what I'm working towards. And then when you put all that effort in and it still doesn't happen,
mhm,
that's for me, that's when I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm done
yeah.
taking care of myself. I'm done going to doctors. I'm done pouring money into this.
'Cause
I'm
you
done.
put so much time into caring for yourself, but for that one specific outcome, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that for me is when it got really dark and bad because for me, and again, in hindsight, and after a lot of therapy and just a lot of healing, especially in the last year and a half, like I'm able to say, like, okay, well, where was my worth? My
Mhm,
worth for me was 100% in motherhood. I mean, that's where I found like that for me growing up. I saw a mom who stayed home. She was a full-time mom, and that's beautiful and wonderful, but that was really the only example that I saw. And
mhm,
so naturally you grow up and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to be a mom, like, and I'm going
mhm,
to do it with all my heart and I'm going to do it well. And that was my desire, right? And so just this weird in between of like I am a mom, but I'm also still trying to be a mom again,
mhm,
and like I have to balance that. And so anyway, to bring it back, at Disney World, I got to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, I have for the last, X amount of time, 2 years or whatever it had been, I
mhm,
have just like put myself so much on the back burner, but I've been simultaneously doing that with my child and
mm,
my husband and the relationships that God has given me and put in my life now. I've been so hyper focused on what I can't attain
right.
and who I will never, meet earthside, the babies that we've lost,
Mhm,
that I've lost sight of
mhm,
what God has given me. So I came to a point at Disney World of all places where I was like, nope, like
yeah.
this something has to change. Has
Mm.
to.
So you embark on this journey, this weight loss journey. Did it feel different from the beginning or did you doubt yourself? Like, did you doubt that this will actually work?
Oh, 100% I doubted myself.
Yeah. I
100%
mean, when you feel like you've made efforts before for one reason or another to heal hormones or get pregnant or whatever and have not seen success or the desired outcome, I think it's
yeah.
natural to be like, I'm going to try, but low
Yeah. And
expectations, you know?
for me, right. Like food for me is like it was my comfort. Like
Mhm,
it's where I found yeah, comfort. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, and I and my family and kind of culture in general, I feel like we sell like when we're happy and are celebrating, we eat, and when we're sad and and whatever we eat, like,
Yeah.
and I really just latched onto that, and it caused so many extra issues,
Mhm.
for me.
I'm
But
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I came home and I was like, okay, Sam, like I was scared to tell Sam like I'm gonna do this because I'd done that before
Mm,
and I had what felt like failed, and so yeah, I absolutely. But I just knew that like if something didn't shift, that I was going to get sicker and sicker, and I wasn't going to be around for
mm,
very long
mm.
because that's kind of the path I
Yeah.
was on, to be
That's
honest.
a heavy realization to come to. Like, oh, this is so much more like than just reproducing. Like this is my future. This is my family's future. And facing that, I'm sure is a very heavy and humbling feeling, but also can be such a strong catalyst and motivator to make a change and really stick with that change. I'd love to hear about the beginning of this kind of journey. So over the last year, you've lost now what, over 100 pounds, which is
102.
incredible. Good for you. That's incredible. Um, so kind of at the beginning, walk me through the approach. Did you and had you tried to lose weight before and taken more classic diet culture methods? Because I know you mentioned kind of going on these like quick little like resets, healing diets, which sometimes have a place, but obviously didn't see lasting results with that. So what did you do this time around that was maybe a slightly different approach than what you had tried before? And how is it different than maybe some of the more common like healing diets, diet culture, restriction, the kind of stuff we typically think about when we think about weight loss?
Yeah, this is a great question. And if I'm going to be totally honest with you, in the beginning, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I mean, I had, like you said, the knowledge that I had collected over the years, and I knew in my head, like what would work well. But also in my head, I had said, well, I've tried this or I've tried that and it hasn't worked. And so I knew a couple things. I knew that it had to be sustainable or it wasn't going to work. And previous to that, I have a personality where I'm like, I'm either all in or I'm all out.
Yep.
And I tend to really adopt that whenever it comes to dieting and food and health. And that's been, and it still is a constant, I have to constantly come back and be like, okay, is there balance here? And so that was the big thing that Sam said to me whenever we sat down, because I wanted it and I knew it needed to be like a family effort. I have a husband.
Needed the support.
Yes, but he can eat, like he could go to Taco Bell and eat that for the rest of his life. I swear he wouldn't gain a pound and like would have the energy of a
like how, why? Yes.
I don't understand it, but it is what it is. And so I knew I had to sit down with him and be like, listen, I need your support. Like, what
like
are some
you bought into this too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I don't like criticism. I don't think anybody really does, but I needed him to criticize what he had seen previous because he had witnessed, all of those attempts. And his big feedback was like, Mal, you go so hard and you do so well and you see this result and then you just fall because you're so exhausted. And so I knew right off, right out of the gate, I wasn't going to be able to do a whole 18 times in a row and be able to sustain that. And so I set some just parameters and some boundaries for myself. One of which was there's not going to be any food off limits. I'm not going to say to myself, you're not going to have sugar for, 6 months or whatever. And I should say, like, anything I share in this podcast today, like this is what worked for me, but I'm not like going to preach from the mountaintop that that's how everyone should do it, or that people should follow the exact framework that I did. This is what worked for me. And so that's what I said to myself, okay, what I know is that I need more protein. I looked at my eating habits and I was very honest. I even sat down one day and for the previous week, just wrote down everything that I had to eat. And that will shock you when you sit down and you actually because to be honest, I knew I was overeating and I knew I wasn't eating really like great things, but there wasn't really I would go through Starbucks and I would get, and whenever I would look at what I actually consumed that day, it was mind blowing to me. And I say this all the time, I was overeating and undernourished. And I think so many of us are
a friend of mine who's a nutritionist, I've had her on the podcast before. Maybe you know her. Her name's Annika. She says something like Americans are eating more than ever, but we're like starving on a cellular level. Like the actual nutrient dense quality of our food, intentionally or unintentionally, is so low that we might be consuming many calories and lots of meals or snacks or whatever, and getting in very few of the needed nutrients we need every day for our bodies to really thrive. And hearing that was that's a really eye-opening. And you say a very similar, the way you said that just reminds me of that. It's very similar. It's very possible. And honestly, I would say quite common to overeat, especially in our culture, because food is around everything. Food is convenient. It's everywhere. It's available. You can DoorDash it in seconds and be severely undernourished. Just because you eat enough calories does not mean you are properly nourished.
Right. And so many people, I don't think, realize that's the problem, because obesity, and for me, I was morbidly obese. Obesity is such an epidemic that people aren't going to immediately think, oh, well, you're just undernourished. But
right. And you almost think I need to just eat less.
Right. Yeah. And so then people do. I mean, we know so many people growing up in diet culture, our moms would eat low fat, trash, honestly. It wasn't
food-like ingredients, not actual nutrients. Yeah.
And so, and culture, and, I hope that this is going to get better over the next several years. And I have hope that it will, but our grocery stores are packed with things that are 100-calorie packets and they're full of absolutely nothing good for you, right?
Literally, that is how I lost like 20 unnecessary pounds in college. Like I was at a fine weight, but I thought I want to be super lean. I saw these skinny girls walking around and I was a little bit more of a muscular build. So I was like, you know what? I need to lose 20 pounds, which is the most delusional thing I thought at the time as a 20-year-old girl. Completely wrecked my hormones, wrecked my thyroid. But honestly, I mean, I actually have a roommate who, like a friend of mine who was a roommate at the time, and she kind of got it like on the same track, right? We'd run like 8 or 9 miles a day, right? Like long distance, like lots of calories burnt. And then we come home and have like lean chicken and 100-calorie snack back before bed.
Yeah. And I feel
And I'm
like
like, I was literally eating like 12 grams of protein a day and all of these little 100-calorie snack packs because we had been so conditioned to think no calorie. And I'm like, why didn't I eat 100 calories of like bone broth or something that would actually be healing, you know? But those 100-calorie snack packs were like, they had a chokehold on me. Okay. Like literal. And I think most women within our age group, if you look back at some point in your earlier life, if there was ever a time you tried to get healthy or lose weight, I'm sure the 100-calorie snack packs had some sort of chokehold on you too.
They sell, man. And that's what we saw our parents do. I mean, and that was kind of the process, right? But realizing and looking at what I was actually consuming and looking at the nutrient profiles of what I was consuming. Like, for example, right, this is a coffee from a coffee shop. And I was and this is like I get one of these a week now. I used to get one every single day. I wouldn't eat anything beforehand. My life looks so different now, but like, and I still get the coffee, right? Because nothing is off limits. But before this, I had 50 grams of protein for breakfast that was nutrient dense, has made me feel full, like all of those things. Whereas beforehand, I would have had maybe a grab and go breakfast sandwich or like something that just wasn't full of nutrients. Right. And so it's like my whole world has shifted, but I didn't shift that much. I just had to like take a look at what I was actually doing and then shift it a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so you've taken this kind of like high protein, nutrient dense approach.
Yeah.
We've kind of talked a little bit about the nutrient dense part, and you mentioned a little bit about protein. What does that really look like? Like, what does that mean? And how do you do that sustainably and practically as somebody who's running a business and parenting and busy in life? Because I think it can sound overwhelming to make a significant shift to the way that you're eating and living and your diet habits and all of those things. So what does that practically look like? And what do you mean by protein or high protein nutrient dense? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So if I should have like brought like basically the nutrient profile or like the macro profile of what I was consuming, but basically I was consuming, which is like almost, I'm like, this had to be like almost hard to do. Like I was only eating like 25, maybe 20 grams of protein a day, which is insane. I mean, like, and I wonder why I had low levels of energy. I wonder why my hormones were so out of whack. Like I was just not getting enough to eat. And so like nutrient, right? But protein specifically is what I realized was lacking so much from my nourishment. I was just not eating nearly enough of it. And that was because I was an absolute sugar dragon. I was so addicted to carbs. I was so addicted to sugar. I mean, like I was hungry all the time. Like, and I will be very upfront, like in the beginning, that was the biggest issue is that I felt like I was starving. Like I wanted to eat all the time. I wanted pasta all the time. I wanted coffees like this all the time. And so for me, like it was a mental shift of like, what is protein? Right. And so I kind of like stripped it down to like, let's eat a steak. Like, let's have just a solid, like that's going to give me a lot of protein. I started slow and then I slowly implemented more and more. So like this type of a coffee, you know, from Starbucks or wherever turned into, okay, and this might freak people out, but like I literally put 2 raw egg yolks in my coffee every single day now, with collagen and a little bit of protein powder. And
does it change the taste? I've actually never done that. And I'm really curious. Like I had collagen and stuff, but the egg thing, I'm like, does that make it taste weird?
No, it makes it creamy. Like you don't at all taste. And I think for me, honestly, it was really weird in the beginning. I was like, this is weird because we've been trained to think like raw is bad. You're going to get sick. But we live here on a farm. And so I knew what my chickens were eating. I knew that I could trust that. And so I started using that. But like, yeah, that's what it started to look like, is like, how can I just add a little bit more protein to the things I was already consuming to make them a little bit more substantial? And I did that for a little bit. And then I started, I did, and this triggers some people, but I started to count macros because I wanted to learn more about really like how much nourishment is in this piece of food that I'm eating. Right. And I really had to like train my brain.
Macros is a little bit different. And now that can get into like fitness, competition, diet culture stuff if you go too extreme with it. But I do think, and I have been advised to do this when I was going through trying to figure out what was going on with my hormones and all the things during some of my health journey. I did have a very holistic, I would say like metabolically focused dietitian suggest, hey, I'm not suggesting you do this for like ever and make this a lifestyle, but for a few weeks, kind of input what you're consuming and then like report that to me. Because what we found is I was actually not getting enough. I was very like, I'm the salad girl. Like all I would eat was salads. And that's why I thought I was healthy. And salads can be great. But when you're living on like a lot of raw greens and minimal protein dressings, you know, that kind of thing. She's like, okay, you're really low on protein and you actually could use some more quality carbs. Like you could use some more like potatoes and root veggies and those types of things to sustain energy. No wonder your adrenals are shot and you're living on 3 cups of coffee a day and all of these things. And it was eye-opening to me. So it actually can be a very helpful tool to get a picture of your overall nutrient profile. It's kind of like, and then also know what you need to tweak to get it a little bit more balanced. So, I mean, I know that it's easy to have an aversion to that when you've had a bad experience with counting calories like I have in the past, or, you know, extreme restriction. But I think going in with the mindset of like, no food is off limits completely. I just need to get a better idea of like what my day looks like and what my plates are looking like and how well that's actually meeting my body's nutrient needs with where I'm at.
And that mindset allowed me to, what I love what you said about how you realized you actually needed more carbs. Like carbs, to have this free, because for so long in my mind, carbs were the bad guy, right? But that's all I wanted and that's all I ate. And so I felt so much guilt and shame surrounding carbs. But then I started to realize like, okay, balance is what I have lacked for so long. And it's not what balance doesn't sell, right? Like that's not what people are gonna
they want quick results, overnight results. Yeah.
But for me, like I realized like that I'm allowed to celebrate food. I still do. I mean, if you go to my account, you're going to see like I make desserts every now and then that don't have protein in it. Right. Like, and that's okay. It's just about relearning or unlearning this lack of balance and celebrating all the macros and understanding like, hey, I can have carbs and I can enjoy them, but let's make sure that it's in a balanced approach, right? And in a balanced way that's actually going to give me energy. Because I'm not, for me, like it doesn't make sense just to eat protein. I know some people for them it works, right? But like I need protein, but I also need fat and I also need carbs. That's when I feel my best and most balanced.
Yeah. I think protein has become, and this is something I want to hear your thoughts on, because I feel like I've started to see a little bit of pushback on, first in the last couple of years, I feel like there's been more emphasis in the just general holistic natural approach to health world, online, whatever, much more emphasis on the importance of protein, specifically for hormone balancing and all those things. And more recently, I've started to see some pushback on that. Like it's not realistic. Don't miss other nutrients because you're so obsessed with protein. What's your take on that? I think you touched on it a little bit, so I want to expand on that a little.
Yeah, I think that's wise. I think it's wise to understand. My problem, like with the diet world or even the holistic world, like you and I both know, and I think that you and I both have become aware of that, especially walking through what we've walked through, is that there's a tendency to go to the extreme very quickly. And really, it's not just the holistic, it's really just online, right? Yeah. In general, because again, balance doesn't sell. It's not going to make sense for somebody to go on and just talk about balance because people aren't going to necessarily follow that, unfortunately. Right. And so my thoughts on that is it's true. Like you need to be very careful that you don't start worshiping this one thing. And I even have to be careful about that because, to reach people and to talk to people, I want very clear wording. And so I say a lot, high protein, nutrient dense, right? And so I think some people can go to, oh, well, you don't want to have way too much protein because then you'll have kidney stones and there'll be all sorts of other issues and and that's true, right? And so learning like, okay, I'm going to take this piece of information. I know I need protein. I know I need more protein. Is that the thing that's going to heal me? No, it's a tool to get me to where I need to be, but it's not like the end all be all. So I think that you have to be careful and you need to learn your body and you need to understand, there's such a difference between like a healthy, good source of protein and an easy, an easy protein grab. Like if you go to Costco and you get protein bars and protein drinks and that's what you live on, that's not going to be good for your body. Like,
I was going to say, what would you say is the difference between a nutrient dense, high quality protein to be prioritizing versus protein that may be a little bit more like kind of classic diet culture, fitness culture world that may not actually be fueling our bodies as well?
Yeah. So for me, I always think of like, what is the most stripped down, most real type of food that I can eat, right? And so if I can get my protein source from, like I said, a steak, we eat a lot of grass-fed steak in this house, then that's to me so much better than a protein bar. Does that mean that I don't ever have protein bars? No, it doesn't. I have protein bars sometimes because I know that, I'm going to be running out the door and I need a quicker fix and that's okay. But I'm not going to, get all of my protein from, the super processed
protein bars. And
yeah. And so finding like brands that really work well, like the protein powder I use, and I think you use too, like it's very, very clean. And so
I say, what protein powder do you use? Because we're going to get this question.
Equip. I use Equip. And Just Ingredients. Like there are several out there that are great. If you're consuming protein powder, and this is a big debate online too, like about protein powder and whether it's good for you or not, or whatever, make your own decisions, educate yourself. But I consume protein powder probably daily, but I feel okay about that because of the ingredients that I'm.
And it's not your sole source of protein. It's not the only way. It's not just like you're on a protein kick and all you're doing is, chugging protein shakes.
Right. So I focus a lot on whole food, real food.
Yeah. Another brand that I've recently tried, and I found like this is an interesting, if someone's like, I'm not sure how I feel about protein powder. It's still a powder, but it's actually primarily made of bone broth. Taylor Duke's Wellness Protein. She sent me a little bit and I put it in. She actually has a really good like organic mold-free coffee too. Subtle plug. This is not sponsored, but it's great. And this is the funny thing, kind of because you mentioned the coffee and the egg yolk thing and all of that. It's funny because my husband he's such a coffee snob. Like I enjoy coffee. I used to be like a coffee addict. Now it's more, and then I like stopped drinking coffee for a few years on some of my health journey. And then now I've kind of reintroduced it, but it's just more of a treat a few times a week. Anyway, I have tried to buy so many of the organic, mold-free, better, cleaner coffees. And he is so like adverse to them. He's like, this literally smells like you're brewing barbecue sauce. This is so gross. So picky about it. So finally, I actually tried some of the Taylor Duke's Wellness coffee and he tried it and he was like, this is actually really good. Is this an organic one? Like he was surprised. And I was like,
really?
Finally, like 3 years into this process, we find one that he will consume. So anyway, just a subtle plug in case you are a coffee snob, because I do know that while there are a lot of like cleaner coffees out there, that obviously it's worth prioritizing like something that's more organic and mold free and all of that. Taste does matter. The enjoyment of it does matter, if you're somebody who really cares about that. And so anyway,
okay, just something. I didn't know she had like protein powders and stuff.
Oh yeah. Coffee, bone broth, protein powder, which I've really liked, especially in pregnancy, because it's primarily made of bone broth. It's not like a bunch of other stuff. It has like, cocoa powder in it or whatever to give it a chocolate taste, but
does it taste good? Like, or can you?
Yeah. Like combining that with coffee, or I'll make like a shake with banana and it's like a chocolate banana smoothie, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily consuming protein powder every single day, but when I do, or I'll mix a little bit of like, the chocolate bone broth protein powder into like Greek yogurt. So just a few ways to kind of get a little bit of extra in. So, because I'm not the kind of person who can eat like 8 eggs in the morning, like some people do that. And I'm like, I gag after like two scrambled eggs. I'm like, that's enough. So yeah. But you have to kind of find ways to get it in.
Yeah, you can sneak it in. And there's things like
Mhm.
Greek, like you said, Greek yogurt or cottage
I mean,
cheese or
literally last night, my toddlers were refusing to eat the delicious chicken that we made. We made like this grilled Greek chicken. It was great. And we literally cut it into like strips so it looked like French fries. So they would dip it in their ketchup and they were like, yuck. And so I'm like, fine. So I put a little like vanilla and some Greek yogurt and they like downed that. I'm like, great. They got their protein in. It wasn't the chicken, but whatever,
yeah,
So
seriously.
yeah. Yeah.
You can get creative, I feel
Yeah.
like.
You have to. You have to. Okay. So one thing I want to ask you is kind of some practicals. Okay. So I feel like one of the things I've really enjoyed about following your journey is even though I have, at least personally, not over the last couple of years, been on any kind of weight loss journey, it hasn't been my focus.
Mm.
It's like you have focused so much on food that you actually like to eat, right? I'm not just seeing like lean chicken and green beans and like little food prep containers, but
Yeah.
you focused a lot on food prep and making that a
Yeah.
rhythm in your life to help make, eating well and eating healthily and protein dense or protein rich sustainable. So
Yeah.
walk me through this kind of like food prep focus that you've done, because not only have you prioritized nutrient dense, high protein meals, which a lot of us probably hearing this would be like, oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea, whether or not I want to lose weight, right? Whether it's to balance hormones or just support my energy or whatever. Um, but how have you walk us through how you've made that like an actual like rhythm in your life so that you can sustain it?
Yeah, I love this question because I am not naturally rhythms are very difficult for me. I should say
Mhm.
that. It's very, very hard for me. I crave them, but I am not naturally gifted in like showing up for
I can
myself.
relate to that. I can relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot
And
of
I
people
mean,
can relate to that. It's like I
some
like the
people,
idea of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I love the idea. And Sam is very ritual. Like that's what brings him so much peace. And
Mhm.
it's just a natural thing for him to wake up in the morning and to do the same thing. For
Mhm.
me, it's literally, he's like, literally, you fly by the seat of your pants, and it is so stressful. And he like, the Lord put us together because we are sanctifying one another for
Yeah.
sure. We're so
Yeah.
different. But for me, I really have to challenge myself weekly and say, what am I going to do right now to prepare for the next week? Because I know myself, and I know that if I do not prepare, I am going to be in the Chick-fil-A drive-through 4
Mhm.
times this week. And
Yep.
that's just the harsh reality of who I am, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
we eat Chick-fil-A
Self-awareness
still.
is key in these types of journeys. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do that, but like if I find myself hungry and I don't have something in the fridge like to eat, it's game over. It's like, okay, what it is what it is. Like we're going to eat whatever we see. And
Wait, we
so
need you to tell all. I need to know this because I know you've been pretty disciplined over the last year about having this whole prep approach and rhythm. And I do want to hear about that. But have there been times over the last year that you have been like, shoot, I've ran out of what I've prepped. I'm going to Chick-fil-A. Like, has that
oh,
happened in the 100-year weight loss or the 100-pound weight loss journey?
yes, 100%.
Good.
Does it happen as much as it used to? No, because
Hmm.
I know it can't, right?
Hmm.
But there are times, 2 weeks ago, Sam and I, again, Sam, he helps, but he also doesn't help. He was like, hey, I really, really, really want Whataburger. I don't know if you've ever had Whataburger, Jordan. I don't
Uh-uh.
know if you've ever been blessed. Oh, that's so sad. And that you have to come to Texas like next week just to engage him.
Done.
But it is, I mean, like the man loves Whataburger. We had a Whataburger cake at our wedding. Like it's a whole thing.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh, the whole thing. Okay.
yeah, it's a whole thing. And so anyway, he was like, and I was like, you know what? A burger sounds so good. And so I
Mhm.
allow myself the burger. And I
Yeah.
even had a Dr. Pepper. People are going to
Mhm.
fall over dead if they hear that, but it's
Mhm.
true. Like that.
Yeah.
So yes,
And that's
100%.
good because, and it's not good because it's like the best for you. But I think that's what we need to hear because when we've seen people have success and a huge transformation in their weight, their image, their appearance, their health, all of the things,
Mm,
it can make us think, I can't make any exceptions or consent or,
right.
compromises. And while
Yeah.
that you don't want that to be the norm, I think even my husband, he kind of in some ways is similar, it sounds like to Sam, where there's times where we're on the go and I've prepped for 3 or 4 days of the week, but we're on day 5 and we're low on stuff. And he's like, babe, let's just order some sushi out, And I'm like, but it has seed oils in it, And he's like, okay, you haven't eaten seed oils for the last 5 days. It's going to be fine. And it's like we need that in our life because otherwise we can turn health, weight loss, whatever journey we may be on into like the God of our life. And we miss out on like, wait, what am I actually trying to do here? So I'm encouraged to hear that for the sake of somebody listening who might feel like, oh my gosh, I've got to do this 180 lifestyle shift. It's like, or a 150, like you
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to go 100%, but if you can make it 80% better, awesome. Anyway,
Something
didn't
that
mean
I
to
have
like,
learned, yeah, something that I have learned over several years of grief specifically that grief taught me, because grief is such a good teacher. It's
yeah,
a brutal teacher, but a great
yeah.
one.
Mm-hmm.
um, is that like you are a human being, right? God
Yeah.
has created you in his image, but you desperately need him and you are going to fall flat on your face. And so the sooner we accept that and we realize that and we're able to understand the beauty of that, like that we are not going to be perfect creatures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Learning like I can do those things. I can, and it's not even necessarily a negative thing. I think it's a good thing. Celebrate food in that way. It's a gift,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think if we use it appropriately. But as long as we do that and then we continue on with the habits that we know are truly nourishing ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
we don't set up camp, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what I used to do. I used to be like the world's best camper, and I would set up my
You
tent.
make one exception and then the whole thing derails.
Yeah, I would go to
Yeah.
Whataburger and I would set my tent up, and I swear I would eat Whataburger for the next like 3 months. Like it
Mm-hmm.
was just, and I don't know why. I don't know, why I struggled so much with that, but learning like, hey, you can enjoy this without like truly setting up camp and sticking in this place for
Yeah.
so long,
Yeah.
and giving myself that grace changed a lot.
That's good. Yeah. Okay. Sorry I didn't mean to like throw a wrench in that part of the conversation. I want to hear a little bit more about how you've like gotten to this kind of prep strategy. Walk us through what that has practically looked like and how
Yeah.
we can implement that in our life. And I also have a very specific question after that because it's relevant.
Okay. Well, so in the beginning, I'll be really honest, it was like it was not good. Like I was so scattered. I felt like I was in my kitchen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I started getting overwhelmed because we live in a very small home. Like it's a wonderful home, but it's very small. Our kitchen is very small. And I felt like I was just constantly cleaning my kitchen. That was like my full-time job because I was cooking so much. And so I realized pretty quickly, like there has to be some sort of a rhythm here, or this is just going to like, I'm going to derail so quickly. And so because I was cooking so much, I would write the recipes down, and then I started slowly realizing like, okay, what is most sustainable for me? And so this is what has worked for me. On Sunday, I will prep a snack for the week. I will prep my breakfast for the week, and I will prep my lunch for the week. And so that puts me in my kitchen realistically for about 3 hours, honestly, on Sunday, which is okay with me because that means that I don't have to be in my kitchen cooking myself snacks and lunch and breakfast for the rest of the week,
Do
right?
you just make it in bulk, like a bulk snack? And is it
Yeah.
the
So,
same recipe?
yep.
Okay.
So I'll make like a higher protein snack that I can just grab and go. Something I have loved recently is making like adult Lunchables. So like just something that I can pull out because I work from home, like something that I can pull out of the fridge and just snack on.
Yeah.
But
I
that I
mean, as
know,
somebody who works from home or a stay-at-home mom too, I'm sure I can relate to this. When you're in your home, it's really easy to like kind of wander over to the fridge, even if you're not super hungry, because you're like, I have a little downtime. I'm a little bored,
you're
kind of
bored.
hungry. A snack sounds good. Yeah, for sure.
100%. And if like I said, like I don't feel like I'm very hungry much anymore because I'm constantly like nourishing myself. Like I don't let myself typically get to a point where I'm just like famished and just like, oh,
Yeah.
give me a juicy burger, right? Like but anyway, so yeah, I'll prep for myself. I don't prep for my husband. I don't prep for my son, which sounds terrible, but like I'll cook for them throughout the week. Judah is at school during the week, and so he eats lunch. I make his lunches in the morning. But yeah, I'll prep for myself, and then I know I'm going to be fed because I think something that we're really good at as moms is like making sure that our kids are fed and our husbands are fed, and then we forget to feed ourselves, and then we're like, well, I'm going to have goldfish off the ground now, and so it just is what it is. But I think prioritizing myself and not feeling bad for that in this way with food and nourishment has, for me, it's been what has made it most sustainable. And then you speak to rhythms. Something that is super important to me that has always been really important to us is that we sit down as a family for dinner at least 5 days a week. Like we want Judah to remember like, hey, in the evenings, like that's the time that mom and dad sat down and we were like so intentional. Phones go away. We have very intentional conversation, and Judah sees mom cooking in the kitchen, like, and he cooks with me. He cooks for us sometimes now. Like,
That's amazing.
it really is wild to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, so So that has been the most sustainable. I cook dinner usually five nights a week, which seems really scary, I think, to some people. But if you have a plan going into it,
Yeah.
it's not quite as overwhelming.
Yeah, you're not like winging it. Because I mean, I will say in busier seasons of life, I would say more recently, there have been a lot of nights. I'm very intentional about like wanting to try to eat at home, 80 to 90% of our meals. I'm okay with ordering out a little bit throughout the week if we have to for lunch or whatever. But I will say there's been so many nights in the last probably couple months we've had swim lessons and so many things happening and big transitions and travel. And my husband's been so much busier. And honestly, up until the last year and a half to 2 years, as his work has gotten so much busier and takes up a lot of evening time, he's actually kind of been more of like the cook of our family. He just knows how to pair flavors well. He grew up with an Italian and German set of grandparents who like would make these extravagant meals. And so he picked up a lot of skills that come naturally to him too, because he's such a foodie. So for a long time, especially before we had kids, he was kind of the primary cook of the family, and he'd make these delicious steaks and great meals. And so I kind of got like, it's been a rhythm shift for me to be like, okay, we're kind of shifting roles in this way in this season of life. And so there's definitely been many, many nights where he's like, what are we doing for dinner? I'm like, I have no idea. It's 4:45. Like, I need to figure this out. And sometimes we scrounge together something. And sometimes I'm like, we're going to order sweet green because it's the healthiest option. But like, this is what we're doing, and it's like, I've had to give myself grace in that because I'm like, this is not my top choice, but we're rolling with it, But I will say the weeks that I am well prepared ahead of time, even when dinner time rolls around, because I wasn't like in the kitchen all day making breakfast and then making lunch and like making snacks and all the things, it doesn't feel so overwhelming to be like, okay, and when you have a plan, when like when I just take 5 minutes on a Sunday to like write down what we're going to have and at least source the ingredients and make sure everything's stocked, I don't run into days like that. And so I can feel the stark contrast, and it just kind of depends on the week and the weekend, whether we're traveling, but the prep on a few of the things, not everything that you're going to eat for the whole week, but having some things prepared ahead of time and at least a plan. I would say having a plan is still preparing to some extent, even if the food is not prepped, because you're not guessing every day.
Right. That requires mental work, like to sit down and be like, okay, what do we want to eat this week? And what are we going to do?
And it is a discipline you really have to get into, because when you get out of it, you can feel the stark contrast of like being in a tornado. Like, wait, what are we eating? I don't know. We're out of everything. So
it's wild how that kind of like goes off onto your that stress. Like if because there are still times like, I mean, realistically, that's always going to happen, right? At some point, you're going to hit a season, and that's okay, where things are just super busy. Jordan, you're literally growing a human from scratch.
Yes,
right
and
now.
also that my brain's half working.
You've got two other humans. So like, there is so much grace for that. But whenever we find ourselves in those seasons, I realize like, oh my gosh, the stress the lack of this rhythm creates, and I can see in my home. I'm like, okay, it's worth it. It's worth it to sit
There's
down.
more downsides to the stress that creates than the 20 minutes or 30 minutes of just even mental energy you have to put into like prepping, thinking about it, ordering, sourcing ingredients, etc.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I noticed such a big difference in my child whenever he's not nourished. Like,
honestly, same, especially now that my kids are able to like express things and talk a little bit more. So funny. My 2.5-year-old lately, he's been going, I am very hungry. You okay? Like he's starting to really, I want to eat breakfast, and up until the last few months, I was like sometimes they'd pick at their breakfast, sometimes they would want to play first. So I didn't really feel like the urgency to get up a little bit earlier and make sure something was prepped until it started to feel like chaos in my home. And I was like, I have to be up to at least 20 minutes before them just to like have the breakfast sitting out, because otherwise they're just losing their minds in the morning. And it's crazy. You see the difference 100%.
Yeah, you totally do.
So a question I have is, how many days in advance are you prepping like your snacks and your lunches? Like for how many days? 3 days, 5 days? And at what point do you get concerned about like, do you freeze any of it? Do you get worried about it going bad in the fridge? Because that is one thing I struggle with prep, is like, I would love to prep for the whole week ahead, but after about 3 days of something like cooked sitting in the fridge, I get a little anxious about food poisoning. So I don't know if that's like my fear of puking that I have, that the whole internet at this point knows about. But
that's fair. No, so I'm a little less weird about, not that's weird, but like I don't.
No,
I'm
weird.
Worried.
Yeah.
So I typically will not prep any more than 4 days ahead. So
okay, that makes sense.
Mentally,
4 is a reasonable threshold to me. I'm like, are we doing 7 days here? Because like that's a little extreme in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, mentally in my head, I'm like, okay, Monday through Thursday are usually our most chaotic days in terms of like, I have work, Judah has school, like then we have baseball or soccer, whatever it is. Like
Yep.
And so I know that those days are going to be really a lot harder for my mental capacity. Like I'm just going to need something, right? But then
Yep.
on Friday, typically we really slow down. And you asked, do you go to, fast food or whatever? Every Friday, almost every single Friday, we have family pizza night where we
Mm.
order pizza. And some people are going to be like, well, that's so what I do. I will
Mm.
eat one piece of pizza and then I make sure I prep a really big delicious salad and I'll have a
Mm.
salad with that and maybe a little bit of yogurt or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And so that's how for me it looks a little bit different at this point. Like we still
Mhm.
have family pizza night and we watch a movie.
Mhm.
That's our
Mhm.
one like movie a week where we
Mhm.
sit down and we love it. It's a
Yeah.
ritual that I feel like brings more joy and peace to our home than not.
Mhm.
Um, and so I know that, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are going to be a little bit different and a little
Mhm.
bit not as crazy and chaotic.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I don't prep for those
And you
days.
also have probably Sam home to help out with
Yeah.
prepping a breakfast, or now it
Yeah.
sounds like your son being at the age where he can hop up and help, make a meal. Like you're not just on your own through the chaos trying to do it all. So, and obviously it's going to depend on your family dynamic, your how many kids, your season of life, all of
Right.
that. But I think, and that's why I appreciate you even saying like, this is what works for me. May have to modify it a little bit for your season. But I think, having the big takeaway is like, what can you prepare that will make your life easier, at least a majority of the days of the week? And
Right.
even if you can't necessarily spend 3 or 4 hours in the kitchen on a Sunday preparing it all, how can you have a plan so that you're not just feeling like you're winging it every day? Because those few disciplines really can make a huge difference. Because I feel it in my own life. I know you've seen this significant difference it can make in your life. So I feel like that's the big takeaway of like from a practical standpoint, that is something that can make a huge difference in how well nourished we are and how intentional we are around our food.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
I love it. Okay. Last two questions I have. One, I know you shared quite a bit on some of your Costco staples. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, because I think it's easy to think, oh, Costco is just like a big bulk store. There's not a lot of healthy options there. I need to go to Whole Foods to eat a healthy life, or the farmer's market. And like, yeah, ideally we're sourcing as much as we can from like a local farm or whatever. But walk me through how you've used Costco as a tool in this weight loss and health journey you've been on.
Yeah. So I love Costco for the reason, just the simple reason that I feel like it's more universal in terms of like accessibility and people are able to, you know, everybody has a Costco, maybe not, but I feel like they do. Right. And so,
Most have access to a Costco somewhere. Not everyone, but
yeah.
yeah.
And so I feel like there is an art, and I don't know that I've exactly figured it out yet.
Mhm.
But I do feel like, especially if you're prepping meals,
Mm,
Costco can serve you in such a brilliant way.
mm,
And I will say that like every time I go, I'm surprised by the quality of food that they have.
mm.
Is it
I feel
perfect?
like that has improved recently because my husband's always
Really?
been a big Costco guy, and I wasn't really super on board with it for a while
Yeah.
because I just feel like it's a lot of big box stuff, like
Yeah.
Kraft mac and cheese, and there are those things there. But in
Yes.
the last year or so, maybe 2 years, I've been like, "Oh, they have actually some, like, higher quality grass-fed protein," and, like, there
Oh,
are some, like, seed oil-free snacks, and, like, there are some better things that are
yeah.
more and more I'm noticing there when and it's funny because now he's starting to look for those things, and I'm like,
I was gonna
"You
say, I
what?"
wonder if
Um
it's changed because he's more educated now, and that's what he's like,
Yeah, and
I
that could be it, because honestly, he would normally do a Costco run if we would do them, which we wouldn't even do every week, but when we would and he'd come home with stuff, and I'm like, "We're not eating this," like, "Why did you buy this?" So I just had this thing in my brain that either, like, Costco's just kind of, like, no different than it doesn't really have a lot of great options,
yeah.
or, you know, and
I
maybe
feel
it didn't, maybe it's improved, but I think it might just be that he's more educated too.
Well, to be fair, I didn't start shopping at we didn't have a Costco. I used to live in Amarillo, and we didn't have a
Mhm,
Costco. So I didn't have
mhm,
access to that until about 3 years ago.
mhm.
Um, but I feel like you can go into Costco and you can leave with an absolutely horrific
Yes,
cart and like,
yes.
have a terrible diet, or you can leave with like
Mhm,
very quality. I mean, really, their produce, like their beef is very good.
mhm.
That's where we get our steaks. We love their steaks. And we save money. Whereas if I were to go to like
Yeah,
a Whole Foods, it is
mhm,
wild.
yeah.
I very rarely go to Whole Foods anymore because
Mm.
I feel like there are ways to eat just as healthy.
And you
Um,
have more on hand for the whole week. I mean,
yeah,
that's been a big thing. I mean, those, I don't know if you have or have had the Once Upon a Farm pouches, like those
yeah,
kid pouches.
mhm.
If you get 4 of those from Whole Foods, like, you can almost get, like, a pack of, like, 12 for the exact same price.
It
And
is
I was like,
nuts.
"Why are we buying these?" And so we switched that, like,
They're
it is
always,
quite eye-opening, especially if you are prepping, especially
yeah.
if you want to have more stock or inventory than
And
just a
I
couple
will
meals a
say,
day.
yeah, I will say I have a small, like we have a family of 3, right? And so
Mhm.
Costco for some people are like, does that even make sense for you? And I
Mhm.
think it makes sense for us because I prep.
Mhm.
Um, but I feel like if you're not prepping, Costco can become overwhelming quickly because then
Mhm.
you find yourself with all this food and you're like, wait, what do I
Where do
do?
I put it? Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't want to waste it and you don't
Mhm.
want to have to like necessarily freeze it. And so I think it works for some people. And if you do it in the right way, then it can be such a valuable tool, but it's
Mhm.
not necessarily like,
The
I
end all.
shop other places too. Right.
Yeah.
And I should say this, like I shop at Kroger and that
Mhm.
freaks some people out. Like they're like,
Why
what?
does it freak people out? Just because it's
I
not like
feel
the crunchiest place or
Yeah, I think because people
Mm.
are like, "Wait, what?" Like, but you can find the same brands oftentimes at Kroger that you can at Whole Foods, and you're gonna pay way less.
Mm.
Like, and so just figuring out, like, what works for you and your family in
Mhm.
that season of life, I think is really
Yeah.
important.
It's interesting because we've sourced a lot of our meat, dairy, eggs, etc., from a somewhat local farm. It's like a 25-minute drive for us. And I've started to see the writing on the wall. I'm like, this, because you have to go drive, pick it up. And I'm like, we still can get eggs delivered from a local farm. And hopefully we'll eventually have land and chickens and that won't be a need. But in the meantime, that's kind of how we've done things. And that worked really well for a while because it was every other week we go to, the local farm and pick up our big box of meat and everything else. But as we're about to have 3 and life's just kind of chaos, I'm like, we literally have forgotten to go for the last 6 weeks. Like we are 3 boxes behind. And thankfully we've had leftover, but I'm like, sometimes you have to, as much as that can be ideal. And I love sourcing from a local regenerative farm and I know where my food's coming from and it's so much closer. There's some seasons where I'm like, that's just not that realistic for us to make a 30-minute drive one way, with 3 kids and the swim lessons and all the things they're starting to get into that a year ago when they were babies and just like rolling around on the ground, wasn't such a
Right.
big deal. So I think also just knowing like, yeah, there are ideal ways to do things and then there are better way to do things. And then there are like, ways to do things that are just completely unintentional. And I think if you can at least focus on what are some better finds that I can do at places I'm already going, like Kroger
Right.
or Costco or whatever, that's a step in the right direction. And that can still lead to significant results and good,
100%.
good outcomes.
I
So
think
I know you have a Costco list too, right? You have like kind of a list of a lot of the staples and things that you like to find there, correct?
yes, I have a
Okay.
master
That's
Costco
a
list.
really great tool. I like opted into that. I was like, I could probably text her, but I'm just gonna do the opt-in because I need it now. And it's helpful because I think at one point when I got it, I sent it to Matt and it's like he didn't even know about some of those options there. So when he does our Costco runs, I'm like, here, take this with you. We'll put that
Right.
in the show notes. I'll link to that if anybody wants to grab it because that's a really great free resource you've put together.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I love
Hopefully
it.
it's
Oh, it for sure is. I think especially when you want to source better at Costco, but you're just still learning how to read labels or what to look for. It's
really,
just a really great tool.
yeah.
Anyway, okay, this has been so good. This is truly my last question. For someone who is maybe in a similar place that you were a year and a half, 2 years ago, maybe
Mhm.
having a Disneyland moment where they're realizing something really does need to change. If not for like fertility or me or my own desires, but really for my family and just for like the longevity of my life and maybe it's losing pounds or maybe it's just I've got to make a total shift to my lifestyle because I feel crummy and I have no energy and my hormones are a mess or whatever's going on. What encouragement would you give to that person and what practical steps would you say like start here, here's where you can kind of do this with grace. Like I just love to hear, I feel like you have a very healthy balanced practical approach to this after 12 years of the refining, right? Sometimes we finally kind of get to that place. Tell me what you would share with somebody who may find themselves in a place of starting to realize like something really does need to change and I want to stick to it this time.
I feel like the first thing I would say is that it's never too late to
Mm,
make a change. I think
mm,
sometimes we convince ourselves. I know for me, for a long time, I don't know if I was using it as an excuse or if I
mm,
truly believed it. But I told myself, oh, you're already 100 pounds overweight. So you're so far gone that you might as well
mm,
just keep going. Right. And
mm,
that's such a lie.
mm,
Um, and I was, 30 whenever I believed that. And so even if you're in your 50s or your
mm,
60s or your
mm,
70s and you've convinced yourself, well, I've been unhealthy for this long.
mm,
I think that that's such a lie. I think that it's never too late to
mm,
start loving yourself well and to nourish yourself. Right. And
mm,
so that would be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say, and this is so key and it feels very impractical probably, but just trying to latch on and like meditate on the fact, and I say this a lot, that you are worthy of nourishment.
Mm.
Um, you don't have to like, you're worthy of nourishment because of whose you are. You
Mm.
are God's, you were created in his image. And
Mhm.
just because of that truth, you are worthy of giving yourself good things. And
Mhm.
that means feeding yourself good things. And that doesn't have to look like, a $500 Whole Foods stop. It can
Mhm.
look like a vegetable, right? Like
Mhm.
it can look like a, a burger without the bread, whatever. So
Mhm.
like realizing that you are not too late and that you're worthy, I think are the two biggest pieces that I really had to latch onto and start
Mm.
to believe.
Yeah.
But from a practical standpoint, I feel like sitting down, this is the most practical thing that I did. And I mentioned this earlier, sitting down and evaluating what you ate in the last week.
Mm.
If for me, weight loss was the glaringly obvious thing, right?
Mhm.
For somebody else, it might not be, but I do think that nourishment is related to probably every single ailment that we experience as
Mhm.
humans.
Mhm.
And so if we can really take a deep dive into what did I actually eat and what am I actually ingesting?
Mm.
And just being really brutally honest with yourself and being willing to say, okay, I went to Starbucks 5 times last week and or whatever it is, right? And like that is not feeding myself good things. Starting there and then saying, I'm going to shift just a couple things.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
I
that's
think,
good. Taking an honest inventory, I think, is one of the most intimidating things we can do because we kinda know,
yeah,
and I know for me, I was like, "Oh, I'm drinking, like, 4 double shot espressos a
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Hmm, maybe that's why my thyroid's a mess," and especially on an empty stomach and all the
yeah,
things, and, it can be again, I think that's a good point to make too, is it can be from a like, from different problems or different challenges or ailments, right? Whether it's, "I'm overweight and really need to get to a healthier weight,"
mhm,
or I'm having all of these, health issues, chronic pain, whatever it might be. Maybe there's a connection to my nutrition and the way that I'm feeding myself. And even if, I know a lot of people might say I eat relatively clean, like I eat a lot of vegetables,
right,
whatever. But it's like, but are you getting enough nourishment? Are you getting, healthy proteins and healthy fats
right,
regularly? Are you avoiding carbs to the point where you don't have enough energy? And so you're turning to things like, and like kind of like running on fumes, like caffeine and, these stimulants that are kind of keeping you going. And maybe that's actually not really what's going to make you truly feel well, even if you don't look overweight or feel overweight.
yeah,
So, yeah, I think that's a really, first of all, love the encouragement because I do think I always say, like, how you treat your body begins with your beliefs. And as I mentioned earlier, if you do not believe your body is a good thing, it's really hard to give it good
yeah,
things. And I think a really similar way of saying that is you have to believe your body is worthy of good things and that it is a gift from God, not a, I always say, like, I had to stop viewing my body as a project to fix when I was like trying to figure out what's going on fertility wise and all of that, and really look at it more like a gift. Because when you start to see it that way, you start to see the importance of giving it good
yeah,
fuel and giving it good things so that it can continue to like be the vehicle you use to fulfill the calling on your life, whether that's to parent a child, parent multiple children, fulfill a calling in a profession, learn, study, go to school to become a doctor, whatever it is that you're doing. Like knowing that the body you have is the one vehicle you get to fulfill the calling on your life. And none of us are going to be perfect at treating it perfectly. And the goal is not to have a perfect body, though that's really what culture has told us. The goal is to like
yeah,
truly believe that it's worthy of good things, as you said, so that it can continue to help you do the good things God has called you and made you to
yes,
do. And I think just starting with that mindset is such a shift and helps us to be able to say, okay, well, then what practically can I implement? And maybe it is starting with taking an honest inventory and shifting just a few things to begin with, because you can always shift more. You don't have to jump into the deep end. And I think you've done a really beautiful job of being an example of that. And even like you said, yeah, I got Whataburger. I sometimes shop at Kroger. It may not be the crunchiest farmer's market health food store, but I can still find better options there and nourish myself well. So, thank you for everything you've shared. Like this has been I mean, it's been fun for me to watch your journey. I've been inspired by it. I've tried some of your recipes. Even for someone who's like, I'm not on a weight loss journey and I feel great, please just go like check out everything Mallory has on her social media and the tools and the resources she offers because they are delicious recipes that'll just nourish your family well, even if you aren't at the beginning of some major weight loss journey. I think it applies to such a broad demographic. And I love that you're doing that. So thank you for making our lives a little easier as moms who want to eat a little healthier and for speaking some encouragement into those of us who really want to make some steps to change something about our health, whether it's weight or something else.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we got to hang out. I feel like I haven't gotten to talk to you in a while. So this has been so.
I know, me too. I'm like, sometimes it's just the best way as a podcast. So I'm glad you're here. And I'm thankful for the journey you've been on and the way you've shared it with the world, because it's been really inspiring to watch.
Thank you, friend.
To learn more about the She Podcast or get involved in our growing community, come hang out on Instagram at Jordan Lee Dooley, or check out the show notes for each episode at jordanleedooley.com/show notes. Thanks for tuning in today. And until next time, stay rooted in faith and remember to do the small things to be good to your body daily.